Hola, and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 10 of 24 from Barcelona in Spain. We're back in Europe for the start of a triple header, which means I need to make 3 of these videos in quick succession, don't I? I get to experience the joys of this game even more, go me. Here's how the driver's standings shape up after last time out in Canada. Yuki Tsunoda holds on to his lead, but the gap to Leclerc in second has gone down to 17 points. Verstappen continues his resurgence in P3, with fellow champions Alonso and Hamilton occupying P4 and P5 respectively. The two McLarens of Piastri and Norris follow, with Perez continuing to disappoint in P8. Ricciardo is 9th in the other RB, with Albon rounding up the top 10. As for the constructors, RB continue to lead the way, with Ferrari 20 points behind in second. Red Bull are a further 10 points behind in third, with McLaren and Aston Martin separated by a single point in P4 and P5. Mercedes fall back to 6th, and Williams are clinging on to 7th. Alpine occupy 8th, Sauber are in 9th, and Haas still bring up the rear in 10th. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen's lead over Leclerc increases substantially due to Ferrari imploding in Canada, with Norris now nipping at the Monegasque's heels in P3. Sainz and Perez are still separated by 1 point after the pair failed to finish in Montreal, with Piastri getting ever closer to joining the pair in their fight for P4. The two Mercs of Russell and Hamilton remain in P7 and P8, with Alonso and Tsunoda still rounding out the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull's lead to Ferrari has grown back up to 49 points, with McLaren closing their gap to Ferrari down to 40 points. Mercedes extend their gap to Aston Martin in P4, with RB remaining solidly in P6. Haas remain in P7, with Alpine jumping in front of Williams in 8th. Sauber are still the only team yet to get on the board. Now it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Spanish GP. Piastri has been removed from the wheel, leaving both McLarens unable to be selected until later on in the season. With 11 drivers still eligible, let's spin the wheel and find out who will be racing as in Catalunya. And the wheel selects Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Can Lewis finally get Mercedes' season turned around? Can we equal our record from a few years ago and have 10 different winners in 10 races? It's time for the Spanish Grand Prix.
Hello everyone, it is a track the drivers know oh so well. It is qualifying in Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix.
So here we are in Catalunya, sitting in Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. Nothing too out of the ordinary here. It's meant to be pretty good weather for the whole session. As we skip to the end of our Q1 lap, which puts us into P1 almost immediately. So we got some good pace here. We are a 10th ahead of P2 as we lose from Q1, Sergeant Norris in the McLaren, Russell in the Mercedes, and Perez in the Red Bull, as well as Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. Norris, Russell, and Perez all out in Q1. Very big shock there. 2 of the 3 Brits are out on the first hurdle, with Perez joining them as well in Q1. So we lost a McLaren, a Mercedes, and a Red Bull all in Q1. Very big shocks there as we move on to Q2. Once again, we set a lap time good enough for P1 in Q2. Again, we definitely got some good pace in this Mercedes as we lose from Q2. Magnussen, Bottas, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, one of the home heroes, out at the second hurdle, as well as Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. So both Haas's, both Aston Martins, and one of the Kick Saubers have been eliminated from qualifying. Again, very disappointing for Alonso to only be starting in P14 for his home race. Thankfully, Sainz did make it into Q3. He actually got P2. As we move on to our final qualifying lap, we kinda have a little bit of a moment coming out of turn 2 there. Not very good for us. That's probably going to cost us a few tenths. As we move to the end of Sector 1, we actually do set the fastest Sector 1 still, despite everything. Kind of interesting, the qualifying pace in this game. The AI's qualifying pace is a little out of sorts, I think. It seems like the AI is definitely more suited for race pace than qualifying pace, which is kind of the opposite of what F1 23 was, which is definitely kind of interesting. I do kind of prefer them to have more race pace, to be fair, but it does kind of make qualifying a bit of a joke as we move on to the end of Sector 2, going into Turn 10 with purple in Sector 2 as well. And despite the moment we had in the first couple of corners, the rest of the lap has gone rather smoothly. As we move to the final few corners now, again, we had this corner reprofiled a couple of years ago. Rest in peace, chicane, you'll not be missed as we move to the end of the lap, and it is P1 for us. We're on pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix, and we actually set a time that was 6 times faster than P2. So, Lewis Hamilton takes pole position. We have the two Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc in P2 and P3. We've got the championship leader, Yuki Tsunoda, in P4. Gasly doing a very good job in the Alpine in P5. Verstappen only qualifying 6th, which is interesting. Ocon 7th in the other Alpine. The Alpine's having a very good qualifying session. Piastri in 8th in the sole remaining McLaren. Zhou in 9th, and Alexander Albon in the Williams rounds at the top 10. And qualifying is over. We now have the race to go. 66 laps ahead of us. It's time for the Spanish Grand Prix.
Welcome to the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya, 1991, Senna versus Mansell, 2000, Schumacher's Ralph and Michael versus Rubens Barrichello. Legendary clashes. What drama awaits us today at the Spanish Grand Prix? It's a sellout crowd of 140,000 here today as we await lights out for the long run down into Turn 1. This is a 2.9-mile racetrack. Overtaking is challenging here, to put it mildly. There are 16 corners, but there's still a lot of drama and excitement to be found out there on track. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position. A very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Tsunoda, Gasly, Verstappen, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Zhou, Albon, Magnussen, Bottas, Stroll, Fernando Alonso, Hulkenberg, Sargent, Norris, Russell, Perez, and Daniel Ricciardo fills the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Welcome to the commentary box and welcome to Naomi Schiff. I'm Alex Jakes. Naomi, this is going to be interesting. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race. But I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
Did you all see the subtitles at the intro there? They spelled Senna as Center, and Ralph Schumacher's name got butchered. Very good stuff. I feel like freaking ChatGPT made the subtitles there, but nonetheless, here we are on the grid for the Spanish Grand Prix. I'm adjusting my strategy a little bit here, giving me the 2-stop. We're going medium, medium, soft. Seems very good to me as I adjust the fuel levels a little bit as well as we head on to the formation lap now. Very good stuff. As for the tyres, pretty even split, all things considered. Everyone in the top 10, apart from Tsunoda, is starting on the mediums, I should say, and then everyone outside the top 10 plus Tsunoda is starting on the softs. So very even split of tyres there. We're of course starting on the mediums. But yeah, again, going back to the whole subtitles thing, I feel like ChatGPT or some form of AI thing has made those subtitles and got them horrendously wrong. Which, Codemasters, what the fuck? That's probably like the least concerning thing with this game, let's be honest. But it's still very noticeable. And for those like hard of hearing, Good lord. They're not going to have a fun time in the subtitles of this game, apparently. So, yeah, Codemasters, fix your shit. Anyway, onto the grid now. We got 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. A little bit of wheel spin coming off the box there. And we're running side by side with Sainz. Going down to the first corner, it's very much neck and neck as we see Tsunoda and Leclerc also running neck and neck. Tsunoda got the inside line. I brake a little bit later going into turn 1, keeping the lead. We still got Tsunoda and Leclerc side by side, but Tsunoda gets in front of Leclerc going into turn 3. His soft tyres giving him a very good start, but for the front 2, it's pretty much as we were. We try to build up a gap to Sainz, because remember the DRS activates on lap 2 now compared to lap 3. So hopefully we can get a second ahead. But again, the race pace for these cars is significantly more balanced and better than the qualifying pace. So I'm not too optimistic about getting a second ahead. Perez ahead of Russell in P18 and P19. Never mind, Russell gets back ahead of him. Norris battling Sargent for P16 as well. Hopefully them three can make some good recoveries and hopefully get into the points at least for their respective teams. Nonetheless, though, at the front it's pretty much as we were. The only difference in the top, is in the top 10 being Albon and Zhou swapping places and Tsunoda and Leclerc swapping places. But other than that, the top 10 is as we were. Not much to write home about as we go a little bit wide out of the last corner actually. But we do hold on to the position as we move on to the end of lap 4 going into lap 5. I did have the lift coming out the last corner, which gives Sainz a little bit of a sniff, and obviously he has DRS. I cover the inside. He goes to the outside. I kind of push him a little bit there, a little bit aggressively, but no damage done as we go into turn 1, and I keep the inside. And Tsunoda actually had a little sniff at P2 as well, but decided better of it and stays in P3. So the order is still as it was. Hamilton in P1, Sainz in P2, Tsunoda in P3, and Leclerc and Gasly in P4 and 5 respectively. As we move on to lap 15, we see Piastri now behind Ocon. And, oh goodness, if you look at the front, you saw Sainz getting very out of shape there going into turn 1. Thankfully, he keeps hold of the car, but that definitely gives Tsunoda a bit of a sniff, even though Sainz is actually 2 tenths behind us. As Tsunoda is the first of the front runners to box, not surprising considering that he was on the softs at the start, which does give him a good chance to undercut all of us actually. So RB may be playing a blinder here, we shall see, although they may be lacking some pace later on in the race. Nonetheless, the pit stop seems to go very well. Tsunoda's back out. He is in last, but again, he's got some very clear air in front of him as Ricciardo is his teammate is in P19 and is a few seconds in front. As we come into the pits now on lap 22 to serve our first pit stop of the day. Everyone else is continuing on, actually. It seems like no one else is joining us in the pit lane, but everyone on soft has already pitted, which does give us a good gap here on the map to feed into. But Tsunoda is actually coming down the main straight now. He set the fastest lap, so he's definitely got some pace and easily jumps us. So Tsunoda now in the net lead of the race as we come out the pits here, and we see Gasly, who also pitted as well. He was actually the first medium runner to pit. He's also on mediums as well. We just come out ahead of Gasly, which is good news for us, but we are now just under 5 seconds behind Tsunoda, so we do have a gap to make up as we see Alonso, the home hero, going down the inside of Hülkenberg into turn 1. Hülkenberg keeping pace side by side going into turn 3. Alonso takes the inside and takes the position away from Hülkenberg, giving the home crowd something to smile about other than the fact that Sainz is in the lead currently, so that's also something for them to smile about. But again, the Ferraris, everyone in the front still has to pit, so they won't be in the lead for too much longer. As we move on to the end of lap 29, going to lap 30, we've actually caught up with Tsunoda now. Our medium tyres actually doing very well as we open the DRS and easily breeze past Tsunoda actually going into turn 1. We get the move done way before turn 1. DRS being very powerful around this track as we move up to P7 and essentially the net lead of the race. As the front runners now, who started on mediums, now finally come in for their pit stops, it seems like they're all going to be doing a one-stopper. Sainz staying out, but Leclerc, Verstappen, Ocon, all those front runners pitting in. Are they putting on hard tyres? They are indeed. They are doing the one-stop strategy. So this could be very interesting because now I still have to pit in one more time. to put on the softs, but these guys don't have to, so I will end up behind them as I come in to make my second pit stop of the day and my final pit stop of the strategy. And I will end up behind everyone on the hard tyres, but I will be on soft tyres, which will give me an insane pace advantage, at least for a few laps. So we got to make our outlaps count, as we have another smooth pit stop, 2.4 seconds. Could be a little bit faster, but we won't complain about 2.4 because it could end up being a lot worse, as we see all the hard runners pass us now. And we don't actually have much of a gap between them, so if we get these soft tyres into the working window very quickly, then it should be pretty straightforward to get past all the hard runners and get back into lead of the race. So we actually jumped Tsunoda quite a lot there. Tsunoda pitting in before us, obviously, because he was the first of the front runners to pit. But he's actually stuck behind Alonso currently, although he probably will have DRS on this lap, as we also have DRS on Zhou Guanyu, and we brake way later, kind of shoving ourselves down the inside of Zhou. He gives us the room, thankfully. That overtake probably wasn't on, but nonetheless, we do move up to P8, and we immediately now move up to P7 maybe, as we go around the outside. The signs going into turn 4, making the move stick. We absolutely have way more grip. And then the next corner, we dive down the inside of Albon, moving ourselves up to P6. We're rolling off the overtakes here, as the next target now is Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. We decide to hold on. We don't make any silly moves going into the next section as we go into turn 9. We do get the DRS here. Ocon also gets the DRS, but we use some of our battery to slide on down the inside going into turn 10, and that is P5. Now we've got Verstappen and Leclerc in front of us. Piastri and Bottas are further ahead, but they are on a different strategy. I believe that both of them do have to pit in again, so not really too much to worry about as we now go onto the main straight, and we have DRS going past Verstappen, but he also has DRS, and that makes it 3 wide going into turn 1. And I actually dive past both Leclerc and Verstappen on the straight, going around the outside of Verstappen into turn 1. And Hamilton is down to P3 and the net lead of the race, essentially, because Piastri and Bottas, I believe, both still need to pit in again. As we see Perez and Ricciardo now basically fighting for the wooden spoon. They're both fighting in last. Piastri in the pits there, so they actually do overtake Piastri, but Piastri will be on fresher tyres, so should easily get past the pair of them. But yeah, Ricciardo and Perez definitely not having a good race, as Bottas still hasn't pitted yet, surprisingly enough, but he is holding on. He's not doing too badly up in P1, all things considered, although that's soon going to be P2, as me with much fresher tyres goes around the outside run going into turn 10, and I retake the lead of the race. But we do have Hamilton and Bottas in P1 and P2. If Verstappen gets up to P3, we do have the familiar podium combination of Ham-Bot-Ver. As we see actually on lap 58, a green flag, which means a yellow flag's come out. I don't know what the yellow flag is for, but we do have Ham-Bot-Ver in the top 3, actually, which is very funny. As we move into turn 9 now, and the safety car is deployed. So whatever caused the yellow flag back there has caused the safety car to come out. And here's the cause of the yellow flag is actually Alexander Albon running in P6. Actually makes a mistake, locks up both his rear tyres, and goes off the track, causing a little bit of a train here as Tsunoda actually crashes into the back of Sainz, which is not ideal for him. But Albon reversing back, allowing the other cars to get past. But Albon actually gets himself stuck in the gravel, which is not good for him, because now he's down into P20, and it gets even worse for him as he can't move at all. Albon, stuck on this part of the track, just can't get himself moving. He's losing a lot of time, actually gets disqualified from the race for parking in a dangerous location, and eventually actually does get himself free. But Albon actually ending up being disqualified from this race after making such a clumsy error in turn 4. Not good for Williams, not good for him. He is out of this race. He has been disqualified. And I decided to make a very risky call here, because I figured everyone would come in for fresher tyres. So I figured I'd jump all of them and just make my own call and put on a new set of softs to go to the end of the race. But that kind of backfires, as everyone actually ends up going past the pits. So I end up losing a whole bunch of positions. So my call kind of backfires a little bit, and I end up in P6 for the safety car, which is not good for me. And I nearly lose a bunch more positions here, but thankfully we do come out just in front of Gasly here. So I lose my lead, and I lose 5 spots going into the last section of the race. And here's hoping the safety car doesn't last too long, otherwise I've got a hell of a job on my hands to retake the lead. I do have much fresher tyres going into the last few laps, but yeah, I have to overtake 5 different cars as Bottas leads the race actually, going into the end of the safety car period, which only lasted 1 lap, funnily enough. But I guess there wasn't much to clear up. It was just Albon's car there being disqualified. But yes, we're down in P6 now. And we got to overtake both Kick Saubers, who are having a hell of a race, by the way. Both the Kick Saubers are doing amazing in this race. Same with the Alpines. Ocon in 4th. Gasly just behind us in P7. But we do have to overtake Zhou, Ocon, Leclerc, Verstappen and Bottas. As we move on to the restart now, we actually get a very good restart. And we're side by side with Zhou going over the line going into turn 1. We're basically going side by side going into the first corner. We've got the inside. Verstappen going down the inside of Bottas as well. So both Saubers looking like to lose their positions as we restart the race here. And Verstappen does move into the lead of the race with fresher tyres. Bottas very long stint on the mediums as we have moved on to P5. Verstappen now in the lead of the race. We do have the freshest tyres of all in the front runners. But again, we do have to make these overtakes count. As we move around the outside of Ocon here, very brave move there, going into turn 5. But we do make it work. We do have a lot of traction coming out the corner. We brake a little bit later going into the next corner. Ocon gives us a room, and we are up to P4 now. We got about 5 laps left to overtake the top 3, but we don't need that as we are now behind Leclerc, who is trying to make a move on Bottas, but Bottas just within DRS range of Verstappen. Actually, I just remembered the DRS is not enabled as we decide to use our battery now. Going on the outside of Leclerc with fresher tyres. We brake a little bit later going into turn 1. We nearly hit the back of Bottas actually. But we do move up back into the podium places, which means we got Hambot Ver in reverse for the top 3 going into the last section of the race. As we see Ocon now in P5, who might make a move, but no, his engine goes with 5 laps remaining. Very much a shame for the Alpine driver. He was looking to get some very solid points for Alpine, but his engine has let him down with 5 laps to go. And Ocon is the second driver of this race to not finish. He's the first DNF technically because Albon got disqualified. But Ocon is out of the Spanish Grand Prix. Oh, such a shame for him. It was looking good. As we move on to lap 63, DRS has been enabled. Bottas also has DRS now. Verstappen doesn't have DRS, but I moved past Bottas and I moved past Verstappen as well on the same straight. The DRS being very powerful here. Moving us back up to the lead, which should give us the win because we do have the much fresher tyres. But again, I could end up making a mistake. And all we need now is Bottas to overtake Verstappen when we truly do have Hambot Ver. But we move on to the last lap now. It doesn't look like Bottas is going to make the move stick. But he will hold on to P3, it looks like, considering he's still in DRS range of Verstappen, which gives him an advantage over Leclerc. So Bottas having a hell of a race. He started in P12, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Bottas having a hell of a time. Same with Zhou. Sauber having an amazing race. As Hamilton now goes into the last corner, Hamilton takes the Spanish Grand Prix win. It's our 10th different winner in 10 races. 10 different wins in 10 races. We equal our record from a few years back. Can we extend the record next time? We'll find out. But nonetheless, Hamilton wins the Spanish Grand Prix.
It's another brilliant performance behind the wheel. Lewis Hamilton takes the checkered flag.
And it's one thing to win, but to win like that in total dominant style, that was a fantastic drive, and it is not one that we see very often.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
So there we go, an all too familiar podium combination that we actually haven't seen for a while since Bottas has moved to Sauber back in 2022. But yeah, we do have a Hamburg podium with Hamilton taking the win. 10 different winners in 10 races. We've equaled our record from a few years back, which is crazy to think about, all things considered. We could make it 11. Next time out in Austria, we shall see. But nonetheless, Mercedes season seems to be back on track, and Sauber getting a whole load of points as well. We're very good for them. But yes, after 66 laps, Hamilton does take the Spanish Grand Prix and the fastest laps and maximum points for him. Verstappen in P2, Bottas in P3, Leclerc in 4th, Zhou Guanyu in 5th, Gasly in 6th. Sainz was looking very good for him, but unfortunately has faltered down to 7th. Lance Stroll in P8, being the only Aston Martin to score points today actually. Magnussen in P9, and Lando Norris recovered from P17 to take the final point and at least give McLaren a point from this race. As for the rest of the classified finishers, Russell in P11 just missing out on the points, Piastri in P12, Alonso in P13, not a very good race for him. Hasn't been a great weekend for him, honestly. The Spanish fans probably going to be disappointed with how their drives are done today. Yuki Tsunoda, our current championship leader, faltered from P4 to P14, having to come in again for a front wing change. Hulkenberg in P15, Ricciardo in 16th, Sergio Perez in 17th with another disappointing race for him, and Logan Sargent is the last of the classified finishers in P18. And we had one retirement, which was Esteban Ocon, and one disqualification, which was Alexander Albon in the Williams. And there we go, that is the Spanish Grand Prix done. Next race is in Spielberg in Austria. It's the Austrian Grand Prix. It's another sprint weekend. It's our third sprint weekend of the year. And it will be next week, which will be on the 28th of June. Our second of the triple header. The European season continues in earnest with the Austrian Grand Prix. So hopefully you'll join me for that one. I do like the Austrian track, even if it is very short. In fact, I like the next two tracks coming up after this one, Austria and Silverstone. Spielberg and Silverstone. Both should be very good. Both should be very entertaining races. Hopefully you join me for the pair of those as we continue this triple header. As for the standings after the Spanish Grand Prix, Yuki Tsunoda does hold on to the lead of the championship, but his lead to Leclerc is now down to 5 points. Thanks to Tsunoda whacking the back of Sainz and having to take another front wing. He did lose his point scoring opportunity, which means Leclerc definitely has closed in. Hamilton jumps himself up to P3 from P5 with 103 points. Verstappen slides down to P4 despite finishing second with 98 points. Fernando Alonso slides down to 5th with 79 points, not very good for him. We have the two McLarens and Norris and Piastri now equal on points with 65 points apiece. Sergio Perez still continues to disappoint down at 8th. Carlos Sainz moving himself up to P9. And Daniel Ricciardo is the last of the top 10 with 55 points. As for the Constructors, RB now lead the Constructors by 2 points from Ferrari, who are only 10 points ahead of Red Bull, so the top 3 looking very spicy. And to be honest, the top 6 looks spicy, as the top 6 are only separated by 42 points. So any of those top 6 really are in with a shot for winning the Constructors here. Mercedes move up to P4, basically swapping places with McLaren, who moved down to P6. Aston Martin remaining in P5 with 132 points. So yeah, the top 6 all looking very feisty here for the Constructors' Championship. And the fight for P7 is actually looking interesting as well, with 3 teams there. Alpine moving up to P7, and Sauber moving only 1 point behind Alpine, moving up to P8, leaving Williams down in P9. And then Haas are just kind of nowhere, honestly. Haas are down in P10 with only 19 points. They really need some luck to turn their fortunes around, but hopefully they can have a good couple of races and move into the fight for P7 as well. So we got a fight for P1 with 6 different teams, and then 3 different teams fighting for P7 behind them. Very good stuff. But yes, that is the Spanish Grand Prix done. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you'll give it a like and make sure to subscribe for all future F1 videos as well. Again, the next one is the Austrian Grand Prix in a week's time, so look forward to that. Check out the playlist on my channel. It has all the races there already if you want to watch any of the other races from earlier on in the season. And yeah, as I said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, and I'll see you all for the next one.